Thanks so much for joining in with me today. I'm Hannah Hellman, and today I want to share with you a little bit about how to freshen up your stamp pads. Am I the only one who, every once in a while, my ink pads get a little yucky, a little, in need of freshening up? So today I want to run through with you just a few steps I use to freshen up my ink pads and make them look as good as new. Real quick, before I do that, I want to share with you some of the benefits of Stampin' Up! Ink pads because I really do love them, and I think you might if you try them as well. So one thing I love about our pads is the large size of the inking area. You really get a good size ink area here compared to a lot of other ink pads on the market. Another benefit is we sell these Reinkers for just a few dollars, so you can make this ink pad that you purchase last years and years and years when you add one of these to your purchase. And I always encourage you to order your Reinker the same time you order your pad so that you will never run out of that color of ink. These are made to store upside down, so that's one of the other benefits is when you open it up to use it, the ink is always right here on the surface exactly where you want it. They do lock shut, how you just saw. Now, when I had a toddler, that was a huge benefit, huge benefit. And one of the other things I really like about them is the color label. So we have the color label on the front, but the other color label that is maybe even as important or maybe more is this color label right here. So when you purchase your ink pads, check the back side because you have color labels back here to use on the end and the inside. And then I always use one of those on my Reinker as well. So let's talk about how to freshen these pads up. I have 4 steps I usually go through when I want to clean up my pads. And the first one I'll tell you about, I won't actually do it right now, but the first step, if I have done anything with an aqua painter lately, where I wanted some ink inside my pad to pick up with my my water brush here, is to rinse this under a sink and all of that color will just melt away. Now make sure you don't get water from the sink onto the pad itself, but you can run it into this base part and all of that color will just melt away. Let it sit for a few minutes. You can dry it out with a paper towel if you like. And that is step 1 to clean that up. Now step number 2, and I'm going to hold this so that you can see. Occasionally, especially after my classes where people are cleaning their stamps with baby wipes, I'll get these little lint or fiber pieces on the surface of my ink pad. And that just drives me crazy because sometimes they get stuck to my stamp. And then when I stamp with that little piece of lint stuck to my stamp, it doesn't stamp quite correctly. And I get a spot that doesn't stamp right. So what I have come up with to solve this problem is to use what other than a lint roller. Expose a fresh sheet of your lint roller, and you want to do this carefully to try not to get ink everywhere, but just roll across the surface. And that picked up a lot of those pieces. I see 2 big ones left, so I'm going to try this again, see if I can get them picked up. And they're still there. So what I do occasionally, if I have a couple of stubborn ones that don't want to come up, use something. I have this little handy shopper's card here we're going to use for another step in a second. And since it's sitting here, I'll just use the corner of that to lift up those little pieces. And now they're out of the way, okay? So step number 2, clean up the surface with a lint roller. And if you need to, get a little tool of some sort to get off the stubborn pieces. Next, let's talk about re-inking your ink pads. Now, this pad doesn't really need re-inked right now, so I'm not going to add a lot to it, but I'll show you how I do this. I just run across the surface, putting a stream of ink down. I go back and forth, back and forth. Now, depending on how much it needs, I may do the same thing going this way. I may add quite a bit if my pad has gotten pretty dry. Since this one hasn't, I'm not going to add a whole lot. And now I have streaks with more ink and streaks with less ink. So I want to even that out. So that's why my shopper's card was here. You can use a credit card or any kind of shopper's card, and you can use this to go back and forth and even that ink out. Or a plastic spoon works really well too. So you can just take this across the surface of that pad, go back and forth, and I like to go the other way as well to make sure that ink is even across the surface of the pad. Do like the spoon a little bit better than the shopper's card. If you ever get a sharp edge of your card down into your pad, you can't actually damage it. So the plastic spoon works really well if you want to try that. So that's step 3. Now I've got fresh ink in there, plenty of ink to work with. And the last step I like to do, can you see the excess ink around the edge down here? And there's a little bit up here. Sometimes these end up looking really dirty after some of my classes. So I like to take my Stampin' Chamois. This is my favorite tool for cleaning up my stamps, but is also my favorite tool for cleaning up my ink pads. And I just run the very edge of my chamois right along the edge of the pad there. And as you see on my chamois, it is picking up some of that ink. So I have to be careful not to smear it sideways, or then the ink ends up out here farther on the edges of my stamp pad. But I just run that right along the edge, and it cleans up the pad really nicely. So those are my tips for freshening up your ink pads. When you add ink to your pad, I do encourage you to start with just a little bit until you get a feel for knowing how much ink you need to add depending on how dry it has gotten. If you ever get into a situation where you have added more ink to the pad than you intended to, and it's a little too juicy, I'm going to link you right here to a video I created on how to remove that excess ink so that you can still get a nice crisp stamp image. So thanks for joining in. You can find links to my blog with more information on this post, as well as to shop for your stamping supplies in the video description below. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, comment on, and share this video, and I hope to see you back here again next time.